Welcome to today's program. With us we have here in studio, we're going to be having a discussion on the budget 2019. And we have here with us PPP members of Parliament rather. We have former Minister of Home Affairs, Mr. Clement Rohee, and the former Minister of
Local government
and regional development, Mr. Ganga Persaud. And we'll be talking about, as I mentioned, about the budget 2019 and the expectations of the people of Guyana regarding that. We'll start with Mr. Rohee. Mr. Rohee, welcome.
Thank you.
Good morning, good day rather. Tell us, what is your view regarding the entire outline of the budget in terms of the expectations of the people of Guyana and how this will impact them?
Well, thank you for inviting me on the program, first of all. It's been a while since I've had any exposure of this time, say with Parliament. Let me put it this way. You know, I've been in Parliament since 1992. And during the period of the PPP government, there have been about 22 budgets, presentations, from 92 to 2015. For this government, there have been 5 budget presentations, which means that I've witnessed or participated in 27 budget debates. This one is a total disaster. This presentation, or the presentation made by the Minister of Finance, Jordan, when I examine it from the perspective of budgets that were presented by the PPPC during its period in government, and when you look at previous budgets under the APNU AFC administration, this one clearly is a disaster. And I emphasize that because, you know, usually people tend to, people in general, businessmen, farmers, workers, students, they all look for some kind of relief in budget. People always, there's this view that a budget is expected to bring relief to people, not to improve burdens on people. That's the perception. So when people hear the word budget, 2 things come to mind. What is in it for me? What is it not for me? And so people have this general expectation that irrespective of who is in the government, that when the budget is presented, they will have some relief. In other words, whatever pressures they may be under, economic pressure, financial pressure, social pressure. And when you boil it down to, you know, the lowest common denominator, which is, for example, how the family could survive, people tend to have great expectations. Now, with the PPPC in government, those were expectations as well. But the thing is that when budgets were presented by the PPPC, in actual life, in actuality, in reality, people did enjoy benefits. In other words, every aspect of the budget touched the lives of people, whether it had to do with education, health, housing, security. Every aspect of a budget under the PPP's tenure touched the lives of people. In this case, this is not going to happen. And in this particular 2019 budget, this is not going to happen. I'll tell you what.
Why do you say that?
I'll tell you why I'm saying that. I was just about to say that before you interrupted, but you know, let me put it in this way. Usually when you tell people something on Facebook and they feel offended, you would see STEEW. You would know that if you're a Facebook person. You would see something, so a word called STEEW or www mark stew. When you talk to people on the street since the budget presentation was made by the minister, all you're hearing is a lot of subteeth and cynical remarks by people who would tell you quite definitively, I have not heard anything in that budget from you. This is common across the country, and particularly in Georgetown, where I move about quite a lot. The businessmen expect the same kind of cynical and negative view. And so that is where I get my opinions from. Talking to the man on the street, the small businessman, the vendor, you know, the worker, the shopkeeper or shop assistant. These are the people that you have to talk to, because these are the small people who want to have some upliftment in life. They want to come out of poverty. There are others who want a job and are applying all over the place for a job. The budget makes no reference or makes no offer whatsoever to alleviate the living conditions of people who are in dire straits. It makes no solution, it offers no solution whatsoever to a person who is qualified and looking for a job, a student who has just come out from UG, looking for a job, written applications all over the place. Nothing. And especially at this time of the year when everyone needs some extra money in their pocket, the budget has nothing to offer for them. And that is why I'm insisting that the budget, really speaking, is disastrous because it has nothing to offer the common man and woman who in fact are the producers. In other words, those who, and particularly those in the productive sector, people who produce the wealth so that we can export more, so we can sell more in the local market. They cannot make ends meet under the present economic conditions, and the budget is not offering a way out of this situation for them.
Mr. Persaud, you have anything to add?
Yes,
to
sure. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me too, and having Comrade Rohee on this program with me. Yes, I think the word expectation means a lot. And every one of us, including me, had my expectations that budget 2019, the fifth budget of the AP-NUFC coalition government, would have reflected the maturity, growth, and development of the APNU-AFC coalition in government, and that the budget in itself would not have given us what we got. What we got is what a replica of the first budget of the AP-NUFC. A lot of what we got are the same rhetoric. The budget lacks any bit of creativity, any innovativeness to show that the Minister of Finance would have grown having presented 4 budgets before. Rather, he opted on what the man in the street would call the lazy man's way out. And that is, cut and paste the rhetoric again. And so, I am certain one of the reasons why there's so much of disappointment out there in Budget 2019 as presented is the people hearing the same thing repeatedly, year after year. And to add all that Comrade Rohee would have stated, those certainly are up-rung for despondence. And so out there, the people are less than lukewarm to this budget. They're not upbeat. They're disappointed because lots of what they wanted to hear, they didn't. And when you look at it too, it's a budget that is bare, very, very bare. Apparently, what is included in the budget didn't find its way into the minister's speech, and that is the reason why you had all these repeated bits of information coming through. I am disappointed, and I'm certain that even those who sat on the government benches in Parliament are disappointed, and they will share and agree that the rhetoric is too much and the repetition is extremely excessive.
You mentioned it is bare. What are some of the key points you believe should have been presented or being included into the budget?
All right, let me look at the Ministry of Local Government Regional Development, now called the Ministry of Communities, basically. When this government came into being, we all know, albeit by means that are still questionable unto today, in 2015, when they presented their first budget, one would have said, okay, give them some time, let them grow and develop, and similarly you would have gone that. But now when you come to budget, the fifth budget, you recognize that budgets 1, 2, 3, and 4 had little for maintenance and upkeep of all that existed before these people came into government. And so because there was lack of maintenance, you had excessive deterioration, lots of our infrastructure. And at the regional level, at the local government level, residents and citizens face on a daily basis this truth of neglect to infrastructure. And so you have streets with terrible potholes, you have drains that are overgrown, trenches not cleared for the past 3 years, bridges no longer accessible, you have playgrounds overgrown. Now, the thing is that regional administrations and local governments are expected to respond to these issues and bring correction to them. The government has failed miserably to make allocations to meet the expectations of those people with regards to a maintenance program. Everything that was there has actually fallen apart. This government is bent by the way it allocates resources to create difficulties and play high-handed politics with regional governments and with local governments. And it is very, very clear. Why they do this is that they starve these entities that are perceived to be not supportive of them. They starve them of critical resources, and so infrastructure maintenance suffer. Most of the allocation, when you look at it, goes towards the meeting of employment cost and not much for maintenance.
But there had, Minister Jordan had made some allocation for the infrastructure in certain regions, the linking of roads and bridges and so forth.
Yes, indeed the budget would have had some of these things, and every budget would have had these. As Rohee would have stated, 27 budgets he would have been through. What has happened too is that the way contracts are being awarded now, and if you read daily the Auditor General's report, you're finding, like today the Guyana Defense Force stated in the Kaiju News, $17.6 million paid to a contractor for work that is not visible. So the money is being allocated to some extent, some monies, but then it's being siphoned off by corrupt mechanism and this deals and wheels and nepotism and favoritism and those kinds of stuff. People who are given contract, and these contracts, they are not equipped to handle it. And so because of that, even the little that is allocated for maintenance are mismanaged in the way it is allocated and so on.
Yes. Mr. Rohee, Minister Jordan made some allocations, towards the judicial reform and strengthening, as well as the anti-money laundering and countering financing of terrorism, and overall for better governance. I'm sure you might have looked at that entire layout there. What is your view regarding the allocation for such in the budget?
One of the one of the deficiencies of this administration, and this is applicable to all the budget presentations and, in fact, the performance of the government. Because you can present a budget for $300 and something billion,
yes,
but the question is performance and output. And over the years, we've seen, and the Minister of Finance himself had to speak out publicly. In fact, even the IDB representative in Guyana had to speak out publicly about the low disbursement of resources in order for projects to get off the ground. And this is not only foreign funded projects, these are PSIP projects as well. So that the degree, or I should say the high degree of incompetence and lethargy, laid back approach on the part of government in terms of delivering goods and services to people leaves much to be desired, because if you look at the midterm review that was presented to the National Assembly a few months ago, you would see that the projects, both under PSIP and under foreign funding, the pace with which money is being drawn down from the budget to implement these projects are extremely slow. By the middle of 2018, less than half of the resources that were allocated to some ministries were not utilized. Or more than, I should say, less than half was utilized by some ministries. Slow pace of disbursement linked to incompetence and, lack of performance by the administration in terms of delivery of goods and services to the people is the high degree of malaise that are affecting the whole government structure and system. And when these people come to the parliament and they talk to us about the extent to which they have been successful in A or B, the reality shows a totally different picture. So that irrespective of how much resources has been, allocated for whatever sector, and you mentioned in the justice sector, for example, Basil Williams area sector. This is the question of delivery of services. They don't produce goods. They're not a productive sector. They produce or deliver a service to the people or to the international community on the basis of what the judiciary and the magistracy and the law enforcement sector could produce in terms of services. Even that has complications because, if you look at the turnover of staff from these ministries, it's amazing. There's a high degree of, for want of a better term, bloodletting of human resources. This budget talks about human capital, but the extent to which the government is paying attention, look at the teachers, for example. Had the teachers not struck, that's human capital. And the teachers are helping to produce and develop human capital through the educational system. So the point I want to make here is that all the talk about emphasis on human capital is, just hot air. And so the heavy turnover of staff in these ministries, because a lot of people are either being alienated or being discriminated against or being marginalized, or being told politically what they should do, like we heard the Minister of Health just made a statement that has gone viral on Facebook. When you make statements like that, what kind of signal are you sending to the human capital in the country? What kind of signal are you sending to the professionals? Obviously, people don't want to work under an atmosphere of fear and intimidation. And the level of production and productivity is going to be almost minimal. Then they will eventually, that's why the US Embassy was able to declare so many thousands of visas were issued to people leaving the country. So I am saying that, and to link this argument to what Ganga just said, you asked him about the infrastructure issues. Yes. He's right, a lot of money is going to be made there by people who's just like barnacles,
Mm-hmm.
tagging on to these contracts, and they're giving their friends and family, awarding them contracts. You know, there's a thing that is happening now where sole sourcing has become a big thing in the government. So much so that people have to be constantly complaining because they're taking some of these contracts, lotting them out in such a way so that friends, supporters, and families gets awards. And that's how the money is being siphoned off to other people who support the party by giving them a donation and things like that. The last thing I want to say on this point is this.
Yes.
Infrastructural development has to be seen in the context of the total development of the country. If you look at what they're talking about, everything is built around oil. You know, appears to be the only game in town. And the people, you know, I have to admire the rice farmers. I have to admire the livestock producers, because when you read the budget, how, you know, these people working under extremely difficult conditions. Ganga lives in an agricultural area, so he can tell you.
Yeah.
These farmers, whether it's livestock, dairy, or crop, or catch crop farmers, they've been producing, you see? And had it not been for these people, Guyana would have had a serious deficiency. We're still importing a lot of food. Our food bill is still very high, and the minister has admitted that. But the question is, what kind of incentives are we giving to these small farmers to ensure that they not only produce good, but they improve their livelihoods, their children, the family as a whole, and things like that. And so it's in that kind of total situation we ought to see how deficient this budget is, because as I come back to my original question, it has very little in it for the ordinary man, woman, child, and working class family.
I got that. But regarding the security sector as a whole, and the provisions now being put towards that as regard the budget, what is your view regarding that? You know.
Well, they've allocated, I think, around 36 or 38 million dollars, billion, sorry,
Billion.
to this sector. That sector is a total disaster. It's a total disaster because they have chopped up, so to speak. The public safety and security, the Ministry of Home Affairs that used to be, you know, public safety, public security. Half has gone to the Ministry of the Presidency. Another quarter has gone to Mr. Felix. And I'm sorry, I should have used the word, they've degutted.
Mm-hmm.
They've degutted the former Ministry of Home Affairs because they felt that that was too powerful a ministry.
Okay.
And so what they've done was to clip Ramjatan's wing. You remember Moses Nagamoto had said that he wanted to clip the wings of the presidency by bringing constitutional reform.
Okay.
Well, I don't think he succeeded in clipping the wings of anybody, save himself.
Himself, yes, himself.
So what has happened is that the ministry had been totally degutted. So a part has gone to Felix, a part has gone to the Minister of the Presidency, and Ramjatan has been left with chair bare bones.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he can afford to be, you know, imbibing so frequently and developing a reputation that people have lost total respect for him. So if you have a person like that running the security sector, you cannot expect anything else but zilch. Zilch, zero. Because he's sleeping all the time, and in fact, he is plagiarizing on programs and projects left by me and left by the government of the PPPC.
Yeah.
That's what he's living on. He's not a barnacle. Sucking the blood from so that he could get some survival. You know, like the mosquitoes, they have to survive by doing that. Or the ticks, he's like a tick. Not tick-tock from the clock, but like a tick from living off of what the PPPC left behind for sustenance. And so the security sector is in total shambles. It's a disaster, and it's unfortunate because all these things will come back to harm the people of the country. At the end of the day, just like when you increase the price of a commodity, it's passed on to the consumer. In the same way, if a sector fails to deliver, it's the people eventually that will suffer.
You say the security sector is in shambles. What are some of the key areas within the security areas that needs real attention?
What
that
they
is,
have done,
that
I'll
is
tell you
lacking?
what, it needs a total rehab. They brought a man from the UK to introduce security reforms. Up to now, Granger had promised that they would present to Parliament the study that was done by the expert that they brought from the United Kingdom. Quote, we haven't seen it as yet. It has never been presented in the Parliament. So, you know, they operated within a vacuum and we operated in a state of secrecy. There's no accountability, there's no transparency. They talk about police reform, they talk about prison reform, they talk about fire service doing better. But again, we come back to the human resources. Why these sectors are failing? Because of leadership. Leadership is very important at the political level particularly, because it's the minister who gives general directions and orders to these sectors. So these areas will fail, unfortunately. I hope for the best of the new minister, of the new police commissioner. I'm hoping for the best of the, what is called the chief fire officer and the chief prison officer. I wish them all the best, but unfortunately, they are taking instruction from a man who's a total failure and a disappointment to the people of this country.
I'll touch back on that in a bit. Mr. Persaud, the local government commission was recently, reconstituted basically, and with that we saw the recently held COI, Commission of Inquiry into City Hall, and I believe today is the day where they're going to be, presenting on the report of that. And also, I not too long came from the swearing-in ceremony of several city councillors. And, overall, what would be your idea or your synopsis on the entire, sector or the Ministry of Communities angle of dealing with that?
Thank you so much, and that's a very, very interesting question. It's very wide too.
Yes,
and I'll try to deal with the various components of it. One is that local government elections made November 12th would have come and gone.
Yes.
And I'm happy that the councils are being sworn in, and so we expect a lot.
Yes.
The COI has pointed to condoning of slackness and lack of accountability on the part of the government. The COI has shown clearly that what happened at the MNCC should have been prevented if the laws were followed. The minister at the Ministry of Community, well, ministers, because there are three of them there, they all turn a blind eye to the doings of the Chief Executive Officer. It's a similar scenario that operates across the 10 regional administrations, where you have hand-picked persons. We refer to them now, man in the street, as state guards. These guys are called REOs, so they manipulate everything, and if the Parliament approve an allocation to do this activity, they change that and they plant palm trees and they set up gardens. That's what they do, so you can't get the people's expectations being met or their sufferings being addressed. Similarly too, the local government commission must be commended for taking a bold step, that's COI. We have to wait and see now what will come out of that COI, because we've seen this government enacted a COI into Gaisuku. They failed to agree with the recommendations contained in that report. We have seen them enacted a COI into the prison situation. We haven't gotten that report yet. Comrade Rohee mentioned another report that they commissioned, not come to the Lindo Creek. We haven't seen the report as yet too. They haven't acted on the recommendations and so on contained in these reports. So it is my feeling that while Mr. Mingo and team would have done a very nice job by strategically setting up this COI to give the government some kind of boost heading to local government elections where they get the boots instead of the boots. And so I'm not certain what will come out of that. One big thing that the local government commission needs to look at, and that is something that is called the fiscal transfer. You see, I was on that local government commission with the late Mr. Navin Chandrapal, Clinton Collymore, Vincent Alexander, Basil Williams, and I can't remember the name of this guy who was with the city council before. But we were there, and it took us years to come up with this fiscal transfer. What this fiscal transfer is all about? It has serious budgetary implications, and as you were focusing on the expectations of our citizens, it has serious implications to meeting the expectations of our ordinary citizens. And that is, the fiscal transfer says that if the government, in this case they apportion $600 million to be allocated to the 80 local authority areas, the formula then says that the geographical mass, that is the area occupied by this local authority, plus the population density, that is the number of people living within that local authority, and then the third criteria, that is the rate of collection. That is, if the rate available, the taxes available for this local authority is $10, and if they collect $5, then that's half. So when you add those three, it means, therefore, it tells you what percentage of the pie that local authority will get. The People's Progressive Party worked, and the PPP civic government worked with the PNC and the AFC very diligently after the task force was disbanded in 2010 to come up with that fiscal transfer and get it passed. It was approved. The government of the day has not adhered to that one day. They signed on to it, they brought it into law, and they have not implemented it. So what they're doing now, they're using the $600 million apportion, and they're giving it to the city hall like pouring water on ducks' back, and communities that really need it, they're not getting it. So they're not addressing this formula issue. So people's expectations cannot be met. Already, the ordinary man and woman in this country are overburdened by the tax increases and taxes that were brought on board by the APNU AFC coalition government. And so the local authorities cannot, using a human resource perspective, add to the burden of the already overtaxed citizens of this country. And so their only source of garnering revenue is through that taxation mechanism. The People's Progressive Party and the PPP Civic, being so conscious of this reality, has made a commitment, like they did in 2016, whichever council they would have won, they will ensure that there is no increase in rates and taxes. They've made that commitment again in 2018, and the PPP Civic will maintain that. So it means, therefore, that local authorities across this country are forced to look at different streams of revenue so that they can meet the expectations. And then at the end of the day, you got another story. The government of the day is waiving taxes for its cronies, like the Hearst Telling local authority. the Minister of Communities approved the waiver of the tax for a certain big one that owns a huge hotel in this country. And so the NDC lost millions of dollars in revenue from that individual. And how can you develop? Then another thing. Gaisuku is in serious problems. Gaisuku owes a lot of rates to these local authority areas. They can't pay, so it means that stream is dried up. Government too, it's not honoring its commitment to certain rates and taxes that they have to pay within local authority areas. So when you add all of that, what is happening? The budget 2019 has not given any hope, has not pointed any solutions or new directions where these local authorities or regional administrations can do business differently. Now, in terms of the council specifically,
Yes.
we are hoping that the government will embrace the rule of law. More and more when these officers appear, these accounting officers appear at the Public Accounts Committee, they can't answer basic questions. Their actions of lack of transparency, lack of accountability, more and more are being condoned by this administration. If we really want to have smooth function entities across this country, and for us to get the little benefit that is contained in Budget 2019, high on the agenda has to be democratic, transparent, and accountable governance, and the principle from central government right down to maintain a governance structure that allows for accountability. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Mr. Rohee, you want to add anything to that?
Well, I think Ganga mentioned a whole range of challenges that will be facing the local authorities, the new NDCs, etc., municipalities.
Yes.
But we noticed that the government has hired a firm to conduct a survey to assess properties across the country.
A new valuation exercise.
A new valuation exercise, which will mean at the end of that, and I think they're going to do a pilot project in certain areas, this will eventually bring about an increase in valuation of properties. It will have an impact on property taxes and a whole range of issues. So that's another area that Mr. Ganga Persaud will have to pay attention to.
If I may, what Comrade Rohee is saying, really something that we need to give thought to. And let me give an example. For example, let us say the citizen is presently paying 0.1% rate on his property. That property is currently valued at $1 million. If with a new valuation, that property moves from $1 million to $5 million, it means therefore that the PPP civic commitment remains the same. We will not increase the rates and taxes, but the 0.1% remain constant. What has happened is your rates and taxes has increased fivefold, 5 times. So that's the implication that Comrade Rohee is talking about. Because once that valuation exercise is completed and the register is adopted, then your percentage of maintaining the percentage will be now of a higher sum, a higher value. And so definitely it will increase to that value. Yes.
So is the people really who, do they have to feel the brunt of it all?
Exactly, you're so right. It's the property owner that will feel the brunt of this thing. So it's a clever way of increasing the burden, the tax burden on the ordinary man and woman. Yeah.
And then you have, the new housing schemes that have been developed across the country.
Yes.
People have their homes for the first time.
Yes.
House and land, as they say in popular jargon, for the first time. Some have borrowed money from the banks. They're still paying mortgages. You know, some have bought a car, so they have their own family and personal expenses. Some are aspiring to improve their livelihood by purchasing a car or refrigerator, or some people might even might want to improve the house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, give it a facelift or put something at the bottom, you know, another bottom flat. You know, when you do things like that, you have to think about what is coming.
So it goes back to your first comment where you say nothing out there for the people who really want to develop, the young people especially, in particular. You know?
Well, you see the young couples now, or let's say a young man that Ganga was partner gets a job, and his bride to be is also working somewhere. They're two professionals, okay, and they manage to find a job, and they pool their resources together, and then you know the mother and father decide to chip in with some help, not totally, but at least some help. You know, they have to look for a home. They have to look to put things together for, you know, for creation of a new family and things like that. There are challenges, and very serious challenges that they will have to confront, which is most unfortunate. Remember that during the PPP time, we had opened up a new scheme for young professionals. You know, the banks had reduced lending rates for these young professionals and things like that. All of that has gone, you see? And then to have a motor car these days is also very expensive. Look at what it costs for the tires, the gasoline price, maintenance, a whole host of problems. So it's not that we're being political and just talking for the sake of talking the government and the budget and the minister's presentation. We are very close to the ground. We just came out of a local government elections. All of our people were around the country, meeting with people, talking to people, consulting with people, and so on. So I can't speak for the APNU AFC. I can only speak for the party to which we belong to.
Yes.
Meaning that we have our feet on the ground. We have foot soldiers on the ground who are giving us a feedback as party leaders. Ganga is a member of the Central Committee. I'm a member of the Executive and Central Committee. So we have leadership, we are in positions of leadership, where we gather information or we receive information from our foot soldiers, which is filtered to the top, and which gives us a fairly good idea of what exactly are the challenges that the common man and woman is facing. I have to emphasize this point because you know, these are the people that actually make the economy move. I just want to say this. What we have now is the emergence of a new class of people. This is an elitist, bureaucratic class that is running this country. And this bureaucratic, elitist group of people are looking out, associate what is called the comprador bourgeoisie, a comprador class that is living off of the type of things that Ganga referred to. Contractual arrangements. They are given contracts in order for them to expand. What we have to look at also is not only how this class situation is developing, we also have to look at what is going to happen with foreign capital penetrating the country. ExxonMobil, there's a lot of discussion on how are the Guyanese people going to benefit. You talk to any ordinary Guyanese, and you tell them in local jargon, boy, you know we can get rich soon. Boy, you know oil money going to be flowing soon. Boy, you know Guyana going to be better soon. It's pure shock teacher hearing. All over the place. People have become so and you know, it is because of this disillusionment, this dissatisfaction, and this alienation that their own supporters did not come up to them to vote.
When you look at the budget in itself too,
You see?
and sorry.
We would encourage them to continue that way. Let them continue with the policies, believing that they are, you know, doing well, because we know that at the end of the day, that will redound to our benefit. So let them continue living in their bubbles. The bubble will burst in 2020, and the PPPC will be the ones to reap the benefits.
Yes, Mr. Persaud?
Yes, when you look at the human resource side of it, in the regions, the 10 regions, you have about 91% of the state employees. It's about 13,000 of the workers there dispersed across these 10 regions. And the discontent that Budget 2019 would have brought on board, start with the public servants first. Already the public service union said they will not accept the arbitrary manner in which the government would have handled the remuneration for public servants. So that's one. Two, the teachers' issues running on for 3 years still unresolved. Their patience and tolerance certainly would have gone through. The health workers across this country, issues of overtime pay, issues of working without having the tools to offer proper health care in this country. The tools you're talking about, drugs and medical supply. Many healthcare workers are so disillusioned today. They know what is required to help this patient to recover to good health. But all that they can do is to issue a piece of paper that is called a prescription. This Budget 2019 has not signaled anything as to how a remedy would be brought on board to handle poor procurement procedures and distribution of drugs and medical supplies, so the health workers are off the bat. Infrastructure workers across this country, those even in D&I, but I will talk with agriculture a little bit, the infrastructure workers are tired of being bombarded with requests from persons who are affiliated to the government for this gift, for that gift, for this token and for that token, eating away from the limited profit margin that they get from their projects. So because of that, who suffers? The quality of work suffers. Because if I got to give you this amount, I will draw it back from the 3 sacks of cement that I should have put it additionally, so you got that bit. And then agriculture. Agriculture, all the agricultural workers, the majority of them are private employers, private citizens. They create their own employment. The disincentive to continue to do what they're doing, whether you're in forestry, whether you're mining, whether you are in fisheries, whether you are in cash crop, cattle rearing, poultry, whatever, as Rohee would have stated, there is so much disincentive. And you know what? The people got a comparator. Their comparator was before 2015. So that is what is rubbing it more. And that is the base that the people are using to create their expectations, to judge that expectation, and the result is disappointment. So this government is sowing this seed of self-destruction across the working area of our country. All its human resources are extremely dissatisfied, except for that few, that handful that Rohee spoke about, the bourgeoisies and their category.
Yes. Mr. Rohee,
Yeah.
if we can touch on this a bit. A few days ago, actually, your comrade, colleague, member of parliament as well, Mr. Irfan Ali, 19 charges were brought before him. And next week, beginning next week, the budget debates are supposed to begin. What is your view regarding the time span and all of that, and the length of charges laid against him at this particular time?
Well, the whole thing seemed to be orchestrated. The whole thing seemed to be orchestrated, and you have to look at this move in the context of the severe blow that they suffered coming out of the recent local government election. This is the backlash. And again, Bonda Lawrence's statement is part of the backlash as well. You read carefully what she said, not only in terms of who she will employ and so on, but in the context in which she cast her remarks, the political context in which she cast her remarks, shows the new dispensation that we're likely to experience as a result of the severe losses they suffered in the local government elections. So it looks as though what is going to happen, they're going to open up a number of fronts that will seek to put them in a so-called good light, which in effect will have a very disastrous repercussion on the whole political dispensation that they're now seeking to pursue. Because when they're thinking that this will show them as strong, or show them as, being representative of the constituents, the backlash will come at some point in time as we approach 2020. So the whole thing seemed to be, as I said, orchestrated. The arrest of the former minister on the eve of the debate in the National Assembly. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? There's much more yet to come. I've lived through all of this. Having been over 50 years in politics, I've lived through Morley period, I've lived through Hyde period, I've lived through, now I'm living through Granger period.
A very long time.
So the part of the most dangerous one was Barnum's period. The most dangerous one, right? Hyde sought to, tone things down a little because he wanted to be Mr. Clean. But he also failed because the only way he could have held on to power was through rigged elections. And so that is a big danger now facing this country. What will be the situation in 2020 vis-a-vis election? Will it be free and fair? Hardly likely. I don't want to cast any doubts at this point in time, but what I want to say that we've been there, done that. And so, in the same way that we fought and struggled prior to 1992 to get into office for over 23 years, that's the longest period the PPP has been in office. And it has been so because we've delivered the goods and services to people. Had we not delivered the goods and look, AP and UFC has been in government just for 3 years, and look what is happening with them. Their supporters are moving away. And those from our camp who voted against us are coming back to us like the prodigal children. So, there are exciting times ahead. And as fighters, there's a party song, our party song called "Oh Fighting Men." Well, we will continue singing "Oh Fighting Men," not "Oh Frightened Men." So the struggle continues. We're there in the trenches, operating at different levels. Ganga's on the radio every day. He has his own followers, his likes, and people on Facebook and so on. Some of us are on Facebook, some of us on the radio, some are on TV, some are writing in the newspapers, some are on the ground, some are overseas.
So you're all over.
We're all over the place.
All over.
And the whole point is to be able to deliver come 2020 with the PPPC back in office.
Okay, great. On the final note, next week, the debates, you're fully prepared.
We are always fully prepared. We're going to be firing on all cylinders. We are going to be firing on all cylinders because...
Especially regarding the budget 2019.
Well, yes, because this will give us an opportunity. This is the budget that is the precursor to 2020. Remember, the minister said in the budget presentation that by August of 2020, new elections are going to be held. I don't know, he's not the president to determine that, but he said by August 2020, which means that we're less than a year away.
Yeah, less than a year.
We're less than a year away.
No, we got a year more, no?
We got about 18 months.
Yes, by 18
We got about 18 months left. We're in December. So we got the whole of 2019 and half of 2020.
Yes,
so
so
we
it's
got
about
roughly
18.
about 18 months.
Yes. Wow.
Roughly. Ganga is the expert on this.
Yes, Mr. Persaud, you touch a bit on that, your preparedness going into, witnessing the debate and all of that and being a part of it.
Well, let me say that the People's Progressive Party and the PPP Civic has a mechanism by which, we deal with our budget preparations. That mechanism has been activated, and so all members, as Comrade Rohee said, all 32 would have been given their necessary guidance. They have their budget documents, they've been going through it, running through with their analysis and so on and so forth. And I think we are ready to take it through. And you will have obviously some simple things coming to fore. For example, Minister of Finance in the presenting of his budget statement, he said, we will increase the size of the passport from 32 pages to 46 pages. It will cost $10,000. The ordinary man said, we don't need a 42, 46 pages passport. What we need is a passport with a longer renewal life. So instead of giving us now, you know, a 5-year renewal span with this passport, give us a 10-year renewal plan for the same price, something like that. So these little things, the budget will not only be on the serious issues, but it will also be on those issues that will expose where the government has lacked this ability to take the people's views and the people's interests at heart. Okay?
So we're on the final note, Mr. Rohee, anything you want to add to the people out there of Guyana, encouraging them, you know, giving them some insight into how hard you guys are going to be fighting to, you know.
I would like to say that I've been saying for many, many years to the electorate out there, because at the end of the day, you got to talk to the electorate.
Exactly.
Whether it's local government or general. And when you're speaking in parliament, you're talking to the populace and the electorate as well. Not only the electorate, you're talking to the people. Young people, particularly, they must follow these debates. You know, I hear a lot of young people would say, man, you know, I'm not interested in politics. Politics is important. We don't expect the young people to understand politics like some of us do, who've been in it for our lives. But at least the basics, the ABC. You must know what is good and what is bad, what the budget holds for you, if it holds anything at all. So I would like to encourage the populace, especially the young people, and the women in particular, because women constitute a very important, you know, constituent in our population and in the families. When you hold meetings, you'd be surprised to see more women and men turn out. And I don't think it's because they don't have anything to do. I think it's because they feel it most.
Yeah, they pay attention to the politics.
This is the mother who has to find something to put in the lunch kit. This is the mother who is also a breadwinner to the family. This is the mother who has to understand how the budget works in the family and things like that. So parents in general, mothers, especially single parents, students, must pay close attention to what we are going to be saying in this debate that is likely to take place, the questions we're going to be asking in the Committee of Supply, and they must also pay attention to what the government people are saying and draw their own conclusion, because we believe that people in this country are intelligent enough to pick sense out of nonsense. We will be the ones that will be speaking sense, and the government will be the ones that will be proposing nonsense.
Right.
And people are quite capable of discerning that.
That's true. Well, there we have it. Thank you, Mr. Clement Rohee and Mr. Ganga Persaud. There we had a very short discussion. I hope it was very informative for our viewers out there. And please do, as Mr. Rohee just rightfully said, tune into the budget debates and get informed. My name is LaShawna Gomes Cornelius. Thank you for watching.